Basically, fishing for trout is applied common sense. There's no mystique to fishing with flies or with artificial lures. It's just a matter of how to select the right technique for any given situation.
The heartbeat of America. Listen to the heartbeat of America. Yeah, it's the season in the air, the color of open space. Mountain Lake, magic place, feel the heartbeat of America.
When your heart beats for the great outdoors, see your Chevy dealer, where you'll find over 90 different ways to enjoy it all.
On the heartbeat of America, Chevrolet. That's today's Chevy truck.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Workshop, brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck.
This is your host, Jay Warburton, inviting you to join me in another exciting episode in the Sportsman's Workshop video library series. In the world of sport fishing, it is hard to beat the excitement and challenge of fighting a tail-dancing rainbow trout in a swift, crystal-clear Rocky Mountain stream, or battling a strong German brown in a slow-moving deep hole of a favored eastern river. However, just like any other outdoor sport, the consistently successful trout fisherman is the individual who has taken the time to learn the secrets for success. We will travel to the gorgeous high country of California, where we will join my good friend and trout fishing expert, Rex Gerlach. Rex will show us how he has perfected the art of trout fishing. Let's join Rex at streamside and learn his secrets for success.
Trout need three things in order to survive in a stream or lake environment. They need oxygen, of course, at a sufficient level for them to exist. They need cover to protect themselves from the predators, and they need food. The nymph that somewhat resembles that particular insect in the stream will, with a proper presentation, catch trout. I've got my friend Mike Mercer here. He's a professional guide that I have known for a number of years. And since I haven't fished this particular river at this time of year, I've asked him to fish with me today and give me some insight into this classic freestone water that we're fishing here in late November.
Well, Rex, this piece of water does fall rather dramatically over a half-mile period, as you said. And as it drops, it tends to form little underwater tabletops on the way down the river. That's where the fish choose to lie. The earlier season, you'll find the fish in close to the banks because there's Pacific hatches, but right now we'll be concentrating on the midstream lies, on those little fish hotels underneath the water.
What kind of aquatic life do you think we can expect to find out there, and what types of flies will we use to represent it?
One of the best things to do, a good rule of thumb, of course, would just be to come down the water's edge and sort through some of this grass and the logs and the rocks, that sort of thing. Give you a very good idea of what's available in the stream. Usually it's going to be separated into three categories, either the larger stoneflies, the caddis, or the mayfly. But it's very often that one will be very prevalent, very predominant, and the fish will key in on that. So it's a good idea to come down and look and see which one is.
I noticed a large black stonefly nymph scurry under some of that detritus over there a few moments ago.
They like this detritus here, all right. We'll get in here. Yep, here we go. There's a good bug. Good big stoneflies. Now, obviously because of its size, the fish like these.
Look at the size of him.
Nice little T-bone steaks for them. And that's the the main food ingredient for the trout in this river.
So we'll be obviously fishing with flies that represent the
larger black
stone flies.
Exactly.
I noticed a little while ago on this large red stone here that there are some caddis cases.
Yes, there are some caddis here. They're a smaller version of the little caddis we find a little later in the season, but the fish eat them a lot. They're a good little bug, and as they hatch out, you see some of the smaller adults here.
I noticed you caught a little sculpin a little while ago when you were fishing around under the water.
Yeah, that was a lucky find. There's a lot of the sculpins in this type of freestone water, and the fish eat them at every opportunity. They're quite a mouthful.
Sculpin is a little immature bait fish. Excellent trout food, and the large trout particularly like those, as I recall.
A nice little piece of prime rib.
That's right. How about upstream? What do we have up there?
Well, as you look upstream, you see some portions of the water flatten out a little bit, not quite such a dramatic fall. And up there we find a lot more mayflies and the smaller insects, and sometimes there we can use smaller dry flies.
Oftentimes an angler will, in his eagerness to get on the water quickly, will pay more attention to the lure he's using than he does actually to where he's fishing it. The first thing you need to do is stop and look at the water for a while, and look at those places where trout most likely will be. Take a freestone stream where early in the morning you may find trout feeding actively in the riffles, and all of a sudden the action seems to stop, but you notice in the pool down below you there's a rise of fish going on, and you walk downstream and lo and behold a bunch of caddis are hatching under the overhanging brush and drifting down into the pool, and the trout have suddenly shifted over to the caddis fly that's hatching. So you have to be observant. On flat water, they'll hide down in those weeds. Riffle water, especially directly upstream from a big pool. Oftentimes very large trout, because of a lack of oxygen in the pool, they'll move up into those oxygenated riffles, not too far. Shade becomes very important. Trout are basically secretive. A trout will get on the shade side of a big rock in a pocket behind a rock, in a deep pocket underneath an overhanging tree. And those are places that you might call were almost classic holding spots for trout. I'd like to make a couple of comments about the camouflage of the clothing that you wear for a particular area that you may be fishing in. You'll notice these beautiful oak trees around here. I've selected a tan-colored jacket, a neutral-colored sweater, and with my brown waders and olive-colored vest, I pretty well blend in to this background scenery. If I were going to be fishing in very bright sunny weather in an area that didn't have high banks with a lot of deep color, perhaps I'd select something that matched the sky color. When selecting tackle and clothing to take on your trout fishing trip, remember there's a good rule to follow, and that's to take what you need to fish in comfort and safety, but not a lot more than you need. One of the most important pieces of equipment that we use when using chest waders is the wading belt. This is the lifesaver, and in many cases has served to save the life of the angler when he's decided to take a horizontal casting position in midstream. This is put on around the waders like this, right around the waist, and cinched up tight, so that if you do fall in, the water won't fill up in your waders and pull you down into a deep pool and cause you to drown. If we run into unusual stream bottom conditions, including very slippery rock or boulders, sometimes we need to have a gripping surface that's more efficient than that of the felt sole. So we'll use a bar-type cleat made out of aluminum, like this slip-on shoe, or we'll use a stainless steel spike set into sandals like these. These are called corkers. These will dig down through the algae on the smooth rock, as will these bar cleats, and give you a better purchase on the tricky wading surfaces. The next item we take along when we're fishing the medium to large sized trout streams is the wading staff. That's also known as a sissy stick, but believe me, it's a lifesaver. The end of this particular oak staff is covered with an aluminum tube, which allows you to cut through the algae on the rocks and get a firm purchase to support yourself when you're working in heavy current. The staff, of course, is equipped with a leather handle for comfort. It has a snap on the end of its attachment cord. We hook this onto the wading belt, and when we're not using it, we either let it trail in the river downstream from us or toss it over the shoulder. Here we have an ultralight spinning outfit. It's very cold out here right now, so I'm using a graphite component reel. The graphite in the reel is a thermal insulator. So almost the minute your fingers touch this, the material itself warms right up to the touch. The rod is a graphite rod. It's very sensitive, very light in the tip, because I'll be fishing Single hook weighted feather jigs on this, on 2-pound test monofilament line. The fly rod is a 9-foot fly rod designed for a 5-weight line. I'm using a line that I can see very well because we'll be showing you a rather unusual technique of fly fishing where we're not actually casting. It's called short line fishing or upstream nymphing. And it's very important, since this is a sight type of fishing, to be able to see the tip of that line as we fish. More about that when we get on the water. Let's go fishing. Trout fishermen, like all other kind of fishermen, have to be opportunists. Oftentimes anglers will express a fear of fly fishing, and they say, well, it's too hard for me, or I never could learn how to cast. Actually, it's worth it to take the trouble to learn how to cast. It's a lot easier than learning to swing a golf club. Most anglers don't believe that. It's kind of like learning to do the foxtrot. Once you learn the box step, everything else follows after that. There are 3 basic casts that we need to fish most pieces of water. The first is the roll cast. That's used to make a cast when you have no room for a back cast. It's also used to lift line quietly off the water so that you can lift into a back cast without disturbing the water and therefore frightening the fish. The standard basic cast is an overhead vertical cast. That's that's the normal cast we use for most fishing situations, where an actual cast is made to present the fly. The third cast is the power cast or double haul. That's used to extend long lengths of line, to shoot the line out to get a fly ahead of a moving fish or cruising fish usually, or to make a long distance cast to reach a particular spot like a deep run over 50, 75 feet. Now the first thing about the roll cast is the hand and arm position. The basic cast, and I'll go through this very slowly so you can see the actual movement, is a lifting of the rod tip to the vertical position. The line is allowed to come behind the rod. The hand is right about even with my ear. Then the rod is smartly dropped and pushed down with a thrust like this. Notice I'm letting the line slide through my fingers as I make each subsequent roll cast and lift the line up. You can cast up to about 50 to 55 feet this way. Now the roll cast lift, which allows us to pick the fly up very quietly from the water, is made by rolling high into the air like this and then snapping the line up in the air like that. We'll do that again. We'll make a roll cast, but we'll aim high with it like that. Lift the line up and make the cast. The basic overhand cast is a flipping of the rod tip up to a 1 o'clock position, about here. The rod will flip the line into a loop up to about this position. Then as the loop extends behind me, I'll let my hand drift back, the rod drop a little bit, and then to make the forward cast, I'll turn that loop over. By using my elbow as a fulcrum, I'll push with my thumb and flip the line forward like that. I'll go through this actual whole sequence of movements. The lift and the forward cast. Lift, forward cast. I can dry my fly out, keeping the line in the air doing the same thing. If I'm fishing dry flies, I'll frequently dry them out between casts like that, and then finally release the fly. If we want to extend the cast, now we have to add a little speed to the line when we get out to certain distances, and we put that speed on with the left hand by making little pulls on the line called a double haul. I pull as I lift up and go back, and pull as I come forward and down. If I really want to extend the cast out, I pull a little harder, load the rod, and then I shoot the line like that. And I've extended my cast about 60, 70 feet. I'll do that one again. The pulls impart velocity to the line, and the rod, of course, directs the cast and stores the energy, allows us to achieve momentum, and the cast shoots out about 60 feet. There we go. There's another long cast out into the river. Ultralight spinning tackle like this I'm holding is one of the most versatile types of tackle for fishing for trout. Ultralight tackle itself for trout fishing is generally that spinning tackle that's used with lines ranging from 6-pound test on down to less than a pound test. Using this type of ultralight rod and reel, I can fish live or organic baits. I can fish spinners like I have tied on the end of my line right here. I can fish wobbling spoons, and using another type of rig with a plastic bubble that is attached to the line with a longer leader, I can actually fish flies, both floating flies and nymphs. The basic cast used with to cast lures like this is called an overhead or snap cast. It's accomplished like this. It's just a flip of the rod tip, using the weight of the lure to load the rod, allow the spinner to sink rather deeply, and keep the lure moving just fast enough so that the blades revolve like that. The second method I'd like to show you on using ultralight spinning tackle, it makes this particular type of tackle very versatile, because with it you can fish soft baits and artificial flies very effectively. It's called the spinning bubble. It's a weighted casting bubble that floats. On this particular one, I have a small dry fly attached, so I'll be fishing this dry fly using the spinning bubble. Now, when using the spinning bubble, rather than make the snap cast, we rather lob the cast out, much the way you would a soft bait on a regular bait rig that you would be fishing on the bottom of a lake or river. That's to keep from throwing off the bait, and in this particular case, so I don't hook myself with the fly. That's made like this. Just lob it out, stop it where I want it, then follow the course of the bubble, watching the surface in this case, since I'm fishing an artificial fly, for a telltale sign of a fish grabbing my artificial. I don't like the way the current's working that, so I'll pull it in a little bit this way. And I see a fish working down below me. Maybe I can run this right down on him. Nice thing about it, you can adjust. In fact, I'm going to adjust it and run it in close to shore, because there's a good fish working right in close to shore, right below me. Let's see if we can get him to take that. There we go. Nice fish. Isn't that swell? He's a small trout, but he's a very respectable keeper. Keep his head up. We'll just lead him right over to the shore here, where there's a nice smooth spot. Yeah, he's a little bigger than I thought he was. Actually, you can work the artificial fly a little more effectively with the fly rod than you can with a spinning bubble. If you're going to be an all-around trout fisherman, it's a good idea to be able to master both methods, both the spinning tackle and the fly. It allows you to fish situations that you otherwise wouldn't be able to fish, and take advantage of opportunities that come up that you don't expect. In fishing a spinning bubble, you want to cast far enough upstream in the still water situation so that the splash of the bubble landing in the water doesn't frighten the fish. There are some disadvantages of fishing upstream in still water, and the main disadvantage is casting in such a way that the fly line or the spinning line lands right on top of where the trout's holding. That can cause him to spook. Fishing downstream, you don't have to worry about that. If you're going to fish in a downstream direction on still waters, you want to stay farther away from the fish. Longer casts, more delicate presentations. Right out in front of me, right out on here, are several trout. I'm kneeling down so I can keep my profile down so that I don't spook these fish by moving my body within their cone of vision. They're cruising around in there, and they're picking up these beta mayflies that are floating down in large numbers right down on that current edge. There's two fish rows right there. There are certain ways of tying flies for flat water, and other ways that you tie them so that they're visible to trout in more turbulent stream waters. Most of the time in flat water situations, the dry flies are tied so that they ride high on the surface film, and that just the tips of the hackles poke through the surface film, and the tips of the tails. They're tied out of very buoyant materials so that they look as close as possible to the naturals that happen to be on or just under the water. And that's true also of nymphs that we tie to fish under the surface in the flat water situations. We take a little more care to make the legs wiggle good, whereas in fast water we would tie them with a little stiffer hackle materials so that they aren't compressed back against the body of the actual artificial itself. The serious trout fisherman needs to be keenly aware of the differences in the way the artificial fly is tied for the still surface or quiet surfaced waters versus those that are turbulent and broken. This is the type of large black leech fly that we use up in the pocket water, and sometimes on sinking lines when we fish on a fly down through the pools on the sinking line. This is a very effective fly. It's tied with a lot of lead in the body to make it sink quickly. This is a Montana nymph, which has rubber feelers and rubber tails on it that are very active and mobile in the water. It's ideal pocket water type of fly. This particular fly is a spuddler minnow. This represents the sculpin, like the one that we looked at in the shallow riffle fishing earlier in the film. Sculpin are found in areas like this as well. Here's another variation on the Montana nymph. The Montana nymph, generally speaking, is supposed to represent one of the various stoneflies found throughout these rocky western streams, as well as in the eastern waters, where generally speaking, the nymphs are a little bit smaller. Here's a black rubber legs. This is one of my favorite flies. See if I can give you a little better view of it against the back of my hand. It has 6 black rubber legs and black rubber tails and black rubber feelers. It's a deadly fly fished through the pocket water. The fly I'm fishing with right now is a representation of the stonefly nymph, that dark black one that we looked at when we talked about the insect life. The short line nymph technique is ideal for suggesting that these are dislodged from their grip on the rocks, casting upstream at about a 45-degree angle, keeping the fluorescent part of the leader out of the water so I can see a hesitation. When the fish grabs that nymph, that's the only indication of a strike that I'll get. It's just a little hesitation. That fluorescent piece of monofilament, we call it a strike indicator. In poor light like this, it shows that very quickly indicates that any hesitation of the fly as it drifts along the bottom and rolls along the bottom. Keep the rod hand high, the rod at about a 45-degree angle. Reaction time has to be very quick to the hesitation of the leader. That little take right there. A nice little rainbow. And what I'll do here is get this fish on the reel. If he decides to take off and run, then I'll be able to play him. Right now he's just dogging in the current. Now I've seen him, now I know what, we can put a little more pressure on him. I'm fishing fairly light tippet here, so I don't want to put so much pressure on or break the tippet. Now when he gets tired, I can skate him up across the surface like this, you see. Isn't that a beautiful fish? Now we'll try and release him unharmed without even handling him. There we go. He's off to swim another day. If you're ready to catch big trout, this is the kind of water that you start looking for them in. Long, deep pools, topped off by long rapids filled with large boulders in which there are deep pockets on the downstream side of the boulders. Fly fishermen like to call that type of water pocket water. All the boulders in that stretch are covered with thick green algae, and you would definitely want to use a wading staff. It pays to fish very slowly in this type of water with a short line nymph technique with a strike indicator, using large flies, drifting them down through those short pockets, popping that fly on the short leader into each pocket time after time until you're sure that you've exhausted all the possibilities of that particular spot, and then moving upstream to the next pocket behind the next boulder. There are several types of strike indicators for short line nymphing. One is simply made by using a piece of fluorescent electrical wire covering like this that I simply pull the electrical wire out of and then slide it on the butt section of my leader, which I tie about 4 or 5 inches long and then tie directly to the line. Another type that's very effective for those people who see green well or fluorescent green well is a short piece of fluorescent green monofilament. That's tied, knotted directly to the line, and then to that is knotted the butt section of the leader. Other anglers like the round type strike indicator or the flag type. One type, the round one, is made out of a buoyant bobber material. It's like a little mini bobber with a peg type toothpick in it, and the toothpick is taken out and the butt section of the leader is inserted right straight through the strike indicator. Then it's pegged to keep it from sliding down the leader. They all serve the same purpose. They let you quickly detect the sudden hesitation of the course of the fly as it drifts downstream back toward you from where you've cast it.
Prior to owning the Chevrolet, I had a Ford. Well, I switched to the Chevy because I like the looks better than the Ford. I found out that they had completely redid the truck. You need a four-wheel drive truck. You don't want to have to get out and lock your wheels in. If you want to go into four-wheel drive, you can just shift into it. This Chevrolet truck is the best vehicle I have ever owned.
Heartbeat of America, that's the Chevy truck.
If you don't believe it, just go out and try it yourself.
Right down through that current edge between the fast water and where it meets the slow water. Fishermen call those holding spots for trout edges. And as you look at any trout stream, no matter whether it's fast moving and heavy like this one, or slow like some of the other water that we've looked at in this particular film, those current edges are almost always places where fish will lie and wait, usually on the slower edge rather than the faster edge. Trout generally in streams like this are not as spooky as they are in the flat meadow stretches. They're a little more aggressive, and the reason they are, of course, is they don't have an opportunity in that fast water to wait a long time before deciding whether to take your lure or fly. It's coming by fast. They have to decide right now whether they're going to take it or not. And so generally, the strikes that you'll get on a fly rod and a spinning outfit too in here will be hard pounding strikes, and there won't be any doubt about whether there's a fish there or not. I think one of the reasons I enjoy this kind of fishing is that it requires total concentration. The environment that it's done in, of course, has a lot to do with it. I like the sound of this type of riffle water, pocket water. It has a language all of its own. Gives you a chance to concentrate totally on something that's fun. So many times in today's hectic way of living, you really concentrate only on those things which are not so much fun. Just the very act of fly fishing or fly casting can be pleasurable, and it gives you something to do when the fish aren't biting. There's always the promise that at the end of the next cast that your effort's going to be rewarded by either a loud splashing rise and take on a dry fly or a sharp tug in a deep underwater battle with a sunken fly. But that's what makes us come back and back again and again for the next time around.
Hi, my name is Jay Warburton, and I would like to invite you to enjoy other titles in the Sportsman's Workshop Video Library series. Babe Winkleman covers it all in how to catch walleyes, crankbaits, spinners, jigs, soft plastic lures, and live bait techniques. This video will assure you more consistent success in your fishing for walleye. The country's foremost big game guide, Dick Ray, takes professional outdoorsman Roger Moore on the hunt of a lifetime. These tips presented in How to Hunt the Majestic Elk will let you join the 20% of the hunters who take 80% of the trophies. In Decoys and Duck Calls, best-selling author Bob Brister will show you the secrets of using decoys and duck calls, adapting to weather and temperature conditions, proper gun selection, shell and shot size selection, and dozens of other secrets for duck hunting success. In How to Hunt Black Bears, you will join Roger Moore and Dick Ray as they seek out their trophy in the golden-covered slopes of the New Mexico Rockies during early fall. Using horses and hounds, you will learn Dick Ray's secrets for success as they bag a big boar. In Kids Plus Fishing Equals Fun, your family will learn all the basics as pros Roger Moore and Gary Klein take over 25 youngsters through the basics of casting, tying knots, rigging and baiting the hook and line, selecting and use of lures, and much, much more. Under the narrative expertise of Kurt Gowdy, you will enjoy the finest wildlife photography ever put on film. How to Hunt North American Big Game takes you into the homelands of grizzly bears, Alaskan moose, mountain lions, Dall sheep, mule deer, white-tailed deer, elk, and many other big game animals. In How to Hunt Wild Turkeys, author and wildlife biologist J. Wayne Fears will introduce you to secrets to guarantee your hunting success. He'll show you the best turkey calls and how and when to use them, how to hunt in different kinds of turkey habitat, shotgun choice, and other necessary equipment you'll need. In Secrets for Catching Walleye, Babe Winkleman takes you even further into his secret world for consistently catching walleyes, covering new ways to rig live baits, work spinners, crankbaits, and soft plastic lures. In Introduction to Muzzleloading, Dick Gassaway takes you through the basics of black powder, including the fundamentals of loading and shooting black powder guns and the necessary equipment and accessories to get you started in this exciting sport. It's true, 10% of the bass fishermen catch 90% of the bass. In How to Catch Bass, professional bass fisherman Roger Moore takes you through an extensive crash course in fishing for lunker bass. Learn the secrets of John Wooters, a leading authority on white-tailed deer. He'll show you how to locate productive areas, stalking techniques, how to read buck rubs, horn rattling, bullet placement, and more in How to Hunt the White-tailed Deer. Archery Tactics for Deer presents the experience of America's most widely published bow hunting author, Chuck Adams, as he takes you through the fundamentals of equipment selection, proper clothing, when to hunt, where to hunt, tree stands and ground blinds, ambush strategy, stalking and still hunting, and many other tips for hunting success. Professional trout fisherman Rex Gerlach shows you all the secrets of successful trout fishing in How to Catch Trout, whether pursuing rainbows in the Rocky Mountain stream or working a brook trout in some secluded northeast stream. Rex Gerlach's secrets will help you become a better fisherman. Bass Tactics That Work takes you fishing with bass champion Larry Nixon. Larry gives you his secrets for success on every aspect of the sport, including lure and bait selection, casting techniques, and tips on where and how to catch bass. How to use soft plastic lures. 4 famed anglers share fishing tips and preferences demonstrating how to use a wide variety of soft plastic lures. These pros share pointers on proper lure selection for walleye, bass, trout, striper, and panfish as they fish the Poudre River and the lakes of the Colorado Rockies. New titles will be continuously added to the Sportsman's Workshop Video Library series. Please ask your dealer about what topics are available.